Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Subscription Scaled. I'm your host, Nick Frederick. With me today is Keith Zubchevich, who is the president and CEO of Conviva. Keith, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I didn't butcher your last name too bad there, did I?
It took me till I was 13, so don't feel bad.
All right, good. Then I'm not too far off. Good. Well, Keith, let's start at the beginning here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you came to Conviva?
Good. So I've been in technology about 30 years. So very early on in my career, fell into a technology job and just loved it ever since. So I've been done about 5 different technology companies at varying levels, mostly innovative technologies, really looking at new market introductions. And then I've been with Conviva about 16 years now, part of the early founding team,
Wow.
in which we were doing video measurement before video was on the internet. Tells you how early I was here and how early Conviva was. So,
yeah. Has the business model changed over 16 years, or was that really it from the beginning?
Yeah, we started making money. That was the big change. The big change when we started making money. We started the company. There was so little video. We were really sort of picking up spots. So I say that because I joke, because I say, we started the company 16 years ago and people are like, was there video on the internet then? And there really wasn't. So the reason I say it that way is because our perspective is really from the beginning of the internet video, right? No one was doing video. So we've seen the market go from where it started to where it is today. It's been a massive, massive transformation in general. And we were there for literally every step of the way. So it's been a fascinating journey.
Wow. Yeah. Did you just have the foresight that you thought streaming video was going to take off, or like, how did you see that coming?
That's a great question. I knew it was coming, right? So obviously we started it because we knew video is going to come to the internet. I don't think we realized it was going to take that long, because it was about a good 5 to 7 years. Put it in perspective. There was no such thing as iPhone. There was no such thing as Flash web players on PCs. Was the only video player in the world. A Flash player on a PC. That was it. And it was a Windows PC. It wasn't even a Mac PC. It was literally Windows and Flash. That was where we started the business. And that was the only video player in the world. So
and yet you still thought this was a good business idea.
It was either patient stupidity or visionary, one of the two. So, but here we are. So we've seen the market go from a single Flash player on Windows PCs to where the market is today. So it's really been a fascinating journey.
Wow. Well, there's a heck of a lot to dive into there, but tell us a little bit more about what you guys actually do, what you saw coming, and kind of what you guys serve for those streaming companies.
Yeah. So the premise behind this, how we started the company, was that as any business moves to the internet, you got to measure your performance, because the internet is a generally used, no single owner. Any traffic you put on it is going to be out on a shared network, essentially. And if you're going to put a business on the internet, you have to be able to see the performance of your business. And we thought the best, video is a really good thing to have to know your performance. So we picked video, and we said that the world is going to be moving video to the internet. And because it's not like a television coax cable, it's not a sure quality delivery, that video companies are going to have to see the performance of their video. So that's why we started not only measuring video, but just quality of experience. And as a matter of fact, we started with quality of service, which means it was either on or it was off, right? It was very binary. The video started or it stopped, right? That was the quality of service. And then over time, we modified it to being quality of experience, which means that once we got past the binary, video start stop on the internet, it became what I call small knobs of quality, like resolution, pixelation, join time taking a couple seconds too long, right? Those are the things that were affecting engagement. So we switched from quality of service to quality of experience, and just basically measured video quality of experience for publishers so that they could put video on the internet and see what they needed to do to deliver the best possible experience so that people watch longer. The value prop was simple. The higher the quality of the experience, the longer the engagement in the video. And that was our premise. And as people started to come to the internet and deliver video, and more of the broadcasters started launching video businesses, at the time it was TVE, authenticated apps, web.com videos. They all knew one thing, that if I have a high quality TV experience, I need to make sure I have a high quality internet experience. And that was really how we ended up with our publisher partners that we have today, all the premiums, because quality was number one, right? It was, I have a brand I have to make sure I maintain, because my TV signal is never interrupted. So I have to recreate that same thing on internet. So that was how we got our customers and have ridden with them from launch all the way till today.
Wow. Well, if you think about, to your point in the beginning, it was just a binary, is this working or not, and evolved into what it is today. You've got quality of software and hardware, not only on the consumer's end, right, and the televisions that they're buying and all of those improvements, to the internet ISPs themselves, to even all the way up into the content creators, right, and the way that they're producing this now. And so all of the different things that you can tune into that ultimately just translate to that customer's watching experience have they probably dramatically change every single year, right?
The innovations in streaming are amazing. I mean, you go to CES and you just see the explosions of the number of devices. And you're right, the internet and the way it's delivered, Wi-Fi, 4G, 5G, like there's all kinds of new ways in which video is delivered, even where, like now people can deliver video to cars, right? Yeah. Just the explosion of the complexity of from origin to viewer is massive, and it's constantly changing, which by the way is another reason why you have to see the performance continuously. So as links and everything between you and your viewer change, the only way to know whether you're doing it right is to see what they're watching on the other side. And make sure that in this sort of traversing the internet, traversing fragmented devices, that video is as clear as possible and uninterrupted. And that's the promise of Conviva and this whole complex, ever evolving video delivery chain.
Yeah. Well, the quality of that delivery with all of the choice that's out there now, it's got to be table stakes, right? Because there's just, if I don't like your service, content aside, right, that's kind of a different thing. But especially with live and sports and all that kind of thing, I have a lot of options. And I, as an average consumer, have had some pretty shitty streaming experiences with players that have made me go, I'm done. I'll pay more and go over here. So I would say access to this data, this information is more critical now than it's ever been, right?
For sure. There was an old phrase that people said content was king, right? Oh, don't worry about it. Content is king. And I had a joke that, well, if content is king, experience is queen. And I don't know about you, but the queen runs my house, right? So that's the difference, right? If you, no matter how good your content is, if it can't be watched, nobody's watching it. So that's why you're absolutely right. People started to, and by the way, let me take a step back. When we started Conviva, people didn't know that the internet wasn't built for video. And it was amazing to me how many sales calls we made in which the customer was like, wait, are you telling me that buffering is predominant? Now, today, that's a common thing. Everybody knows what a buffering wheel looks like. Everybody now almost understands ABR when video streams go from blurry to clear. But back then, it was not known. People thought you put video on the internet, just like email. Every time I send an email, it makes it. So therefore, my video has to be delivered. But it's not the same thing at all. It's a continuous high quality packet delivery called video that doesn't always make it on time and connected. That's why you have buffering. So the understanding of the internet was even totally different. People thought, I just need great content. The smart broadcasters, the real high dollar premium subscribers knew if I'm going to ask for money for this content on the internet, I had better make sure it's got a high quality experience. And that's why you see a lot of the big premium publishers invested a lot in technology and Conviva and saying, look, yes, I have great content, but I have to first make sure it's got a great experience in this complex delivery ecosystem. And they've done well. We're proud to say we've seen quality go to, and to your point around being frustrated, right? It used to be frustrated with buffering. People say, well, it didn't start. Now I'm watching TV with my wife. She's like, that looks blurry. I'm like, wait a minute. Like now we're to blurry? Like it used to be just, it was on or off and I'd squint to watch it because, I could watch it on a different device. Yep. Just like HD and SD, right? As soon as you see an HD TV, SD looks broken.
Right.
We graduate, right? Our understanding and our patience for experience starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And now we're at a world where, hey, wait, I had to wait 3 seconds. I quit.
And my number one gripe right now is the audio and video getting out of sync with each other. I mean, good Lord, is that annoying?
Yes, and it could be, and it's almost indiscernible, but your brain is like, wait, I know there's a difference there. I can see it's microcosm, but it's just enough where I see it. And you're right. And that's what will drive you crazy. And that's why experience and why the investment in getting that right first is so important. And by the way, when you start to move to saying content is king, you better make sure your experience is perfect, right? Because you can't make content decisions unless you know the entire content was delivered well. In other words, you look and you say, wow, people quit after the first minute. All right. That content must not be popular.
Mhm.
No, if the experience was bad, that's why they quit. So you
Right.
can't make even content. You cannot make content decisions until you know your experience was perfect. Only then do you know that it is a content choice. Otherwise, you don't know.
Well, that's got to be, I would think that'd be pretty frustrating for content providers who are spending millions of dollars making this stuff, putting it out there. And then to your point, they're watching, they're dropping pretty quickly, thinking that it's the content, right? But actually, it could be something completely else. That's critical
Absolutely.
information. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what I said. And I use the example of you're in New York and you see a show title go to zero. Well, you're as a business executive, as a media executive, you'd say, I need to spend more marketing dollars in New York to prop up that show again because people stopped watching it. Unless you knew that the show title had an error in it and no one in New York could even watch it. So what you've done, instead of fixing a problem, you've thrown money out the window because it's not going to solve the
You've lit
problem.
it on fire. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So that's why I said making a content decision when it could have been or should have been a technology experience decision has a dramatic impact on your bottom line.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why it's so important to get those in the right sequence.
Yeah. Well, let's go a little bit finer. I mean, obviously from just the stream work or not, or is it blurry or not? What are some of the finer points that data points that you can expose to them about the user experience that they're tapping into?
One is join times. I mean, it's amazing how when you talk about the perceptivity of the eyeball and quality of the picture, which is really easy, which, we can show them by resolution changes. And if there's a lot of fluctuations in the bit rate, which is where people will see it was a blurry picture and then it got clear. That's nothing more than it was on a low bit rate and now it's on the high bit rate.
Okay.
That change solved that problem. So the human eye can see that change. And as long as it lands in a high quality picture, I'm good. If it stayed in a low bit rate, people start dropping. So that's one. The second is join times. Things like as long as it takes a video to start, right?
Okay.
That sensitivity is critical that you understand it because it's amazing how many people leave in 3 seconds, 2 seconds, right? They're just used to clicking play and boom, it starts.
Mm-hmm.
And so understanding that, what the expectation levels of experience are so important for publishers. And that's what we try and show them is here's what happened in the video and here's the result. Right. That's why I said experience to engagement, because if you have a 1 second delay and nobody left, that's fine. It hit 2 seconds and you lost 5% of your audience. Now you know the cause and effect of 1 second of join time. And so then you put a focus on, hey, I got to get down to 1 second. So your KPIs can literally be based on maximum engagement. So it's not a guessing game. We can show, hey, this is what your viewers expect. Right? So as people watch content on streaming apps, you're voting with your eyeballs, right? If you think, well, I'm just going to quit because it was buffering too much and you quit, a good publisher will know, oh, there was a lot of buffering and that person left. So you may think, oh, I'm not going to call the helpline. I'm not going to say anything. You just voted with your eyeballs because if they have a good monitoring service, they know that you just went through buffering and you left. They know that's a cause and effect and they should be able to fix that. And that's what we do for our publishers. We show them that cause and effect for what publishers want to see based on their behavior. And you can meet those objectives and you can meet their quality of experience expectations.
Yeah. Well, what could you tell them about the content itself, though? I mean, if somebody got 37 minutes into a series and that's when they're consistently dropping, I mean, can you point to, hey, this is when something happened on the screen and within this piece of content that they either tuned into or probably tuned out of, right?
Absolutely. That's a great point, is if you can measure and you can see the whole session and you can see a group that leaves all at the same time. So to your point, everybody's, let's say 85% of the departures are at the 35th minute. Then by default, you're going to go and say, well, what happens in that 35th minute? And a lot of times you can see it may have been put in the children's section, for example, and boom, there's a murder scene, right? Or, somebody was watching something that they shouldn't have been watching, or maybe you didn't realize that scene was going to be in there. It could be a number of things. But what we find is in a lot of cases, it was an ad break. Right? Because the second thing that happens in content isn't the experience of the content, but when all of a sudden an ad begins, right? And then all of a sudden you go into your commercial and streaming. That's not an easy thing to do. Like in a lot of cases, dropping an ad break into content increases the complexity of just watching that single piece of content. So in a lot of cases, when they say, hey, everybody left at the 35th minute, odds are there was an ad break right there and you had an ad fail, right? You had the ad delivery fail, or you had an ad take too long and it was a black screen for too long. So the people think, oh, my signal just went down, and they leave like that. So that's another way to diagnose hey, something went wrong right there, and we can show them where that went wrong.
Well, that point right there is pretty interesting, because if you think about the streaming services that are now looking at or putting in ad supported content, to supplement paid subscribers, Netflix, of course, being the poster child at the moment.
Yes.
That's even more important. And, thinking about a couple of different experiences, how not Google, but YouTube will randomly seem to throw in ads, right? At a very unstrategic place versus those that are, okay, natural break, they insert the ad here. That's really important now, right?
Yeah, that's what I said. And your point is valid 100%. Netflix Netflix is the godfather of subscription, right? They were the one that started this whole thing. They were the first mover. They became a brand that was on the same level as Disney and NBC and CBS just by being an online SVOD, content provider. So they were the first. Now you're right. Now they're starting to play ads. What does that tell you? Like, there's the business model has to evolve. And I like to point out, going from SVOD to AVOD is not easy, right? And that's what I would tell consumers is, when you go from a no ad to an ad piece of content, there's a lot that goes into that. It basically re-ups the whole chances of something going wrong, because you could perfect the experience of SVOD because it's beginning to end, a single stream. Netflix did that really well. Now they go to live and AVOD, and now you're seeing all these problems, right? They're having all kinds of problems because it just increases the complexity. SVOD is a pretty simple business to do. You have a catalog of content, you put a billing in the front, and people click play, and it just delivers all the way to the end.
Yeah. What have you seen? In 16 years in the industry, you saw the Netflix grow from the ground up, blaze a trail. They kind of developed this industry. And then, in the past few years, like when Disney came on the scene and just added millions and millions of subscribers virtually overnight to their service. What have you seen? Netflix kind of could test and iterate along the way because they were ramping up and growing over the years. But again, Disney kind of did it overnight. What did each of them do well and not do well as they launched their services?
Yeah, well, to give you some perspective, Netflix was still delivering CDs when we started Conviva. That's how far back we go, right? So we saw the launch of Netflix. So, but Netflix, I thought, did one thing really well, and that is they became a data-driven digital content business, right? So they did a great job of knowing what you wanted to watch. They did a great job. People always say that, all the awards they won, they have great creative people. They don't. They have a data-driven business. So what they could do, and what's proven, there's a lot of articles about this, was they would look at cohorts and they would see in all of their catalog, let's look at, what's the most popular actor? What's the most popular director? What's the most popular genre? And they would literally just combine those three things and say, well, people like this person, they like this director, and they like this genre. Let's create a show. That's how House of Cards came out, right? They basically said, let's look at ways that we can learn what our catalog is showing us that people want to watch and make more of that content. So they really did a great job of being able to understand what you wanted to watch and make a lot of great content. They made a lot of money and they won a lot of awards, right? So they were on a hot streak, and they were pacing in the award shows faster than any other content producer because they had that direct digital feedback, right? They could see their entire audience and what everybody wanted and see trends before the old, hey, that's going to be popular, I think, content creators, right? There's a lot of art that goes into content creation on television. There was a lot of science that went into content creation at Netflix, right? So they were using data. So that's how they got their fast start. And then, of course, then you have Disney, which the thing that they did well is they did Disney well. Right? Yeah. So your kids, my kids, they're all going to watch Disney. 20-year-old videos from Disney, they're going to be watching it. So there was not a need for fresh content for Disney. Disney just knew that if I put my content online, I have a built-in audience. I'm Disney. So that's why Disney probably made the biggest impact to Netflix, not because they had a data-driven business that Netflix created. I mean, you look at what Netflix did. Theirs was really pioneering in what they did in the business, and they deserve a lot of credit. Disney just did Disney online. So it was pretty easy to be able to know that, hey, wait, they're going to be successful because everyone's going to watch.
Well, true. That's a really good point. But maybe even more so was the fact that Disney has always been, to at least some degree, a direct-to-consumer business, right? They knew their end customers. They were selling directly to them in a lot of ways. So that type of interaction wasn't foreign to them. HBO, when they launched in their crazy iterations of their streaming platform with different names at different times that sometimes overlap with each other, confused the hell out of consumers. Like, they clearly did not know what they were doing. And even now, they're dropping the HBO and just going to call this Max now. So it feels like they're just playing around and trying to throw stuff at the wall to see what works.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Is that they are evolving, and HBO. We Conviva was there from the very beginning. So we were part of the team that actually built the origin service for HBO. That's how again back to I'm dating myself again. Like we were part of the team that was brought in to help them build the origin server, which is essentially where content sits for any streaming app. So we've been there from the very beginning. And what HBO was hit with was the evolving business models. So when they launched, if you remember, I think can't remember if it was Go or Now, but one was essentially a TVE app. If you had an HBO subscription, you got this with it. So that was the first thing. And then they said, well, let's make it standalone, right? So when they made now I'm going to go standalone. Then they came out with, I think, Now. Right? So they said, now it's Now. And then now it's, now Disney and HBO come together. Let's do another one. Let's launch a different service. So they were hit with varying and evolving business models, whereas Disney came in at a time where it was clear, direct to consumer, SVOD, I'm following Netflix model and I'm going to beat Netflix because I'm Disney. And they just followed the Netflix model of saying, I'm going to build a single app. I'm going to launch a single app. I'm going to put all my content in it. I'm going to charge a fair amount of money and I'm just going to market the hell out of it. So it was a very different world that Disney launched into versus HBO. But again, even Disney, if you look at when they launched, I mean, they did a great job on their launch. That was not an easy launch. As much as they had the content. They bought, obviously, BAMTech. They made a lot of big investments. And you see the news now, they're looking to cut some of those investments, but they spent billions of dollars building out that streaming business. That shows you how much they invested to get it right, because it does take a ton of investment.
Not just the investment, but all of the or the deals that they had with Netflix and everybody else to put their content on all of these platforms. They ended all of those agreements just to go and start this on their own. I mean, they made a massive bet when they did that.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said. They just had to be Disney. They knew I have the content. I know, and I have a built-in audience because all of us have been 3 to 5. All of us have been 5 to 10, right? That is an audience that goes through Disney. That's why I said my son, who's 7 months old, the other day I walked in and my wife had a Disney movie on that was like 10 years old. And I'm like, wow, my 7-month-old son is going to be watching content that I watched or that my daughter who's 15 watched. Like it's just a different, it's a different business model when you know you have built-in viewership. And that's why I said Disney has built-in viewership that they'll always have kids, right? So no matter what, they're always going to have an audience. And they did a great job making that bet. And that's why I think they pulled their content back, was they knew my content is the most valuable content for that audience. So I think they made the bet and it worked.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. It worked. It was still a big bet, but a calculated one for them for sure. I want to ask you about kind of going back to choice, right? So many streaming services, everybody's starting one up. You're seeing even more, I think, probably niche streaming services popping up that serve very, very specific interests or markets. Do you see that continuing with more small ones popping up, or do you see the big guys saying, oh, we can go and kind of take share of that market?
Yeah, it's going to be like Major League Baseball. You have your major leagues and your development leagues, right? And you're going to have the players that live and are the premiums, and they'll never change. I think you'll always be watching Disney. You'll always be watching Netflix. You'll always be watching, Paramount Plus. But you'll always have these niche players come out because, the creative process and for someone to create great content isn't owned by the premiums, right? There's a lot of people that would say, you look at most shows that are on TV, they're not even made by that channel. They bought that show. So what the internet does is it allows people to put more content generally available online. Back in TV days, I had to go to NBC, CBS, Fox, and they had to buy my show because I needed them to put it on their channel. Now, there is no channel. I can just put it on the internet. So I think what you're going to see is, and it will never stop, is that the creative juices of humanity are going to be making great content and launching great content on the internet because you can do it. You just put it out there and voila, I have a popular show and I could get millions of viewers. The question is around longevity. And I think all content streaming apps are going to hit the same wall. And Netflix is hitting the wall, actually. You're seeing them do it. Once you're online and there's no more channel and you're putting out a catalog and people can watch it as fast as they want, you have to generate content at the pace people are watching it. Right. And so you think about how fast you can watch an entire season of Yellowstone, for example. I could binge an entire Yellowstone season in one weekend. but it takes 8 months to make a season. So what you've done is it took me 8 months to make a weekend worth of the content. And by the way, I'm looking at my next weekend's worth of content. Well, Paramount can't make it that fast. You just can't. So you'll be back to the days of you'll have a lot of great content created and put out on the internet that will get popularity. And people will say, oh, that's an interesting piece of content. I'll buy the app. But as soon as they're done with that singular piece of content, most of the time, those people will leave that app. Well, what that means for that app business is they're going to be challenged financially. So what I think will happen is you'll have the people with the money say, hey, that's a great show and you're struggling. I'll just buy you. So I think you'll always see this sort of farm team of content of smaller apps that will put out some great content. But I think ultimately it will work its way up to, and we'll reconsolidate back to a handful of apps that we all watch. And then they'll be buying content and buying things that we want to watch and putting it in the app, because we can't have 35 billing relationships. We can't have 40 billing relationships. I just want a couple, right? I don't want to. I don't want to have to go buy 40 apps because I like 40 different shows.
Well, I want to come back to that point in a second, but before we do that, do you see these content producers, creators taking the path of let me go start my own streaming service, go directly to market, kind of prove that there's a desire for this, that customers want it, and then go get acquired, versus taking the route of saying, I'm just going to go partner with and produce for one of the big guys?
Sure. Yeah, it'll be both, but
it'll be both.
It'll be both. But in the absence of being able to pitch your idea, right? Because the vision, you got my idea and you loved it, so you bought it. Mm-hmm. If I get turned away, for example, and you look at a lot of shows and you talk to the showrunners or the creators, they tell you, like, I got rejected 3 or 4 times, right? Because you don't get yes right away. So what the internet allows them to do, it doesn't mean you have to build your own app. You could put it on a YouTube channel, right? There's a lot of great content that's been developed on a YouTube channel. So where you put it and how you grow it will vary. But my point is that this whole concept of, oh, wait, if I like all these shows, I got to have all these apps. I think the premium publishers are going to start, and continue to buy and consolidate great content into their apps. And I think it'll get a lot easier.
Well, for those that want to go it alone, kind of put their own content out there, obviously you can go the YouTube route, but let's just say they want to start up their own, I don't know, lacrosse streaming service, right? Because I'm going to go after that niche hardcore market that wants to watch live events and on demand and all this kind of stuff. So I'm going to start up that service. What does that look like to do that now versus what it looked like 5, 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah. I think it's probably a little easier, but you have to be committed to do that. Like for you to really build your own streaming app and to do everything, as I mentioned, when HBO started to look at a streaming service, you have to start by designing and building your origin service. And then you have to go and build you have to make your CDN relationship. So literally it's a series of technology decisions and investments that you have to make. That's not easy. And so I think for anybody that wanted to go do that, you really have to be committed to building out a real business. And you probably have to have some backing that you can actually go out and say, okay, I've got enough money that I can actually invest, because as soon as you put it out there, nobody knows it's out there until you market it. So you start you put it out on social and people can click a link and then they come into your business. So I think there's a lot that goes into that. That's why I said I think majority will be done through social media or through YouTube or through Twitch, right? You can put stuff on Twitch, and there's a lot of live sports on Twitch. So I think that's where things will start, and then they'll get picked up by the bigger players.
Gotcha. All right. So to go back to that point about having 35 billing relationships, I mean, we've gone from cable, right, and a truckload of channels that I don't want or need, but I'm paying for as part of this bundle, to everybody starting up their own streaming service. And this is great because I can go just get the ones that I want. I'm only going to have to pay for those. And now those guys are starting to go to bundles, right? So we've created this fragmented world, but nobody's happy, right? Certainly not consumers, because they're constantly thinking about, what am I paying for month over month that I'm not actually using? What can I cancel or cancel for a while and come back to later? I mean, what is the state of things and where do you see this going?
That's a great question, because I think first of all, you're right. Everybody had this big cable bill and they're like, I don't want to pay that much money for channels I don't watch. But then all of a sudden I have like maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 different subscriptions. And guess what? The total amount is the same. Yep. It's just that now I don't even have the choice to watch other channels. I'm literally locked into 12 people that I know I like their content. So I think that's the first thing, is just the economics aren't working out, right? it's now starting to total, and people are probably starting to realize, hey, wait, I think I'm spending more now on all these apps. So I think that's the first thing. There's going to be some economic reaggregation, meaning I want to pay fewer subscriber apps. I want to pay less, but I want access to bigger catalogs. So I think that'll be a driver at some point where you'll have reaggregation of content behind a single billing mechanism. The other piece of the challenge is, and this is a real deal, and I know people probably feel this, is when my wife and I sit down on the weekend and we'll be like, oh, let's watch like Ted Lasso, right? And then we stop and go, wait, which app was that on?
What's that on?
Yeah, I forgot. And I literally sometimes have to Google a piece of content to find the app that's on my TV because, oh, wait, I can't just click channels, right? I got to know which specific app I actually log into. So that's another piece of this is the fragmentation resulted in probably bigger outbound expenses on the consumer. But the second piece is, wait, I got to remember where everything is, right? That's not fun because when I sit on my TV, I just want to have one remote that I know exactly where I'm going. So I think those are two unintended consequences of streaming that I think we're going to start to come back to reaggregation of some kind. And people are going to say, hey, wait, this is not sustainable. And by the way, for a single catalog of content, it's unsustainable to think you can make that much content and someone will stay and watch you all the time. Eventually, you just don't have enough great content. So people are going to go watch another app somewhere else. So I think there's a lot that's going to hit streaming world that this fragmentation has got to stop, right? And you're hearing even Disney, by the way, if you hear Bob Iger's interviews, partnerships are coming back as an option, right? Okay. I don't need to have a direct relationship with every human on earth. I'll put my content where people can get it and I'll make money doing it. So I think you're going to see, back to the old TV days of people putting their content other places just so that they can get to consumers and also put consumers back to a centralized viewing pattern again.
That makes sense. There's got to be some fear of cannibalization, though, in that strategy.
Cannibalization in what do you mean?
Well, in the sense that I have subscribers that are paying me $5 a month. If I put my content on somebody else's platform, they might decide that I don't need my direct service anymore, and they'll just go over there for the content.
Yeah, but this is, I think it's going to come down to an economic decision. So if you think about that, and I look at some of the apps that I pay for, and let's say I have 5 different apps that I pay for, there's usually probably only 2 or 3 shows on that app that I actually watch, meaning I bought an entire app worth of content and I paid, let's say, $10, $9.99.
Yep.
So I paid $9.99 and I only watched 3 shows. Right. So that means that all that content's not worth $9.99. 3 shows are worth $9.99.
Right.
So as a publisher, I have to ask myself, why am I making that other content? Right. So if I go make deals for content and I put my content somewhere else, I just need to make sure I'm making that money back. I can cut content deals that are as lucrative as building an entire catalog of content. Right. So the economics, I think the economics of partnership actually work out better for content producers. It's a much more efficient 1-to-1 ratio. Right, I'm actually making content I know people will watch and I get paid for it. Cool. That's a very easy business versus I made 400 shows and people only watch 3.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think everybody's gone to market with this subscription model that is pay me a monthly fee for unlimited access, right? Because that was a model that customers basically knew on their cable bill. But what do you think about the usage-based model where I'm really only paying for what I watch, or perhaps even a monthly fee that gives me credits? And those credits can be used to watch content, maybe at a lower rate, or maybe credits that don't expire over a period of time that can be replenished, or some model other than unlimited for a fixed monthly fee.
That already exists today called iTunes, right? You think about what we did in the music business, same thing, right? Yeah. I want a song off of an album. I will pay for that song off of an album, and I'm good with that. Or I like the whole album. I want the whole album, but I don't want all the album, right?
Yep.
That's what I said. I said, Nick, you're in my club now. So I'm indoctrinating you into my streaming will start to look like iTunes, right? You'll have content that will be put into catalogs in which you will have that direct. Right? I just want that show. That's what I said. If I log into my app and I only watch 3 shows, then why aren't just those 3 shows you charge me $9.99? It's a much better arrangement for you as a publisher. And I've proven that that's all I want. So clearly I only want those 3 shows and I was willing to pay $9. So meet the market where it is. That's where we start to get into, I believe, into an iTunes type model where Disney will say, I'm going to put this season up. I'm going to put this entire show up. But season 2 will cost you $9.99. one episode of season 2 will cost you 75 cents, right? So,
Sure.
but I think that's what people want. If I know what I want to watch, I'm willing to pay for that. But if I think I'm paying for 400 shows I don't watch, that's why people hated cable. I'm paying $150 for things I watch. Well, what's the difference with that in a big catalog? If I paid you $19.99 and I don't watch half your content, I've recreated the same problem.
Yeah. This all comes back to consumer value, right? Everybody wants to feel like they're getting something for the hard-earned money that they're putting out the door. And a whole lot of consumers right now feel like I am paying for 10, maybe even a lot more streaming services, and I don't even know what I'm watching. And I sure as hell don't want to sit down and try to figure this out, because that's, that's a headache too. Not to mention 10 different billing relationships. What credit or debit card or way am I using to pay for each one of these? And then, something happens, a card gets reissued. Well, 3 of the 10, now I need to go and set up. It's hard to maintain, right? You've got a profile on each one of them with a potentially different payment method. It's just a lot to keep up with.
And the key is, by the way, when you start to look at that and you have a whole catalog, but the key is to know what people are watching, right? That's the only way. That's what I said. The reason why Netflix was successful is they had an immediate understanding of not just what people were watching, but they could start to see trends in what people were watching. They had the data, they brought it in, they said, okay, this is what I need to go do. I think the same thing can be done in other SVOD apps. I want to know, what is my top content? What's the trending content, right? I know what people are watching today, and I can predict what people are going to watch, say in 6 months or 9, then I'm going to make that content. All this other stuff that I throw out there, why do I do that? I don't need all that. I can literally build a data-driven business like Netflix had, where I can see where the market's moving and only make that great content. Or more importantly, know that if I have a $12 app and they only watch 2 shows, and I think those 2 shows are worth $12, right? That's the level of, when you can get that level of intelligence in the catalog, you can start to make those business relationships, right? You're not guessing what content is worth. You're able to see exactly how many people watched it and exactly how many people paid that amount of money for it.
Do you think that could easily go too far, though? Because as much as we like personalization, we talk a whole lot about privacy too. And ultimately, humans don't like to be told what to do or what to watch, even though they really do like the suggestions and personalization aspects of it. That can go too far. So do you feel like we're close to that?
I did an event a couple of years ago, which was on data privacy. And I said, the one thing that you don't get back and you don't get any more of is time, right? So if you sit down and no matter what you do, an efficient life just doesn't waste time. And so if you think about what privacy means in this sort of setting, to understand what you want to watch, people get paranoid. Say, oh, you're violating my privacy. But I'm really not. I'm just making your life more efficient. So as much as people push back on privacy and say, hey, wait, I don't want you to know what I'm watching, that's to say that every time you sit down, you want to do a cold search of everything on the internet. No, like at some point, you have a couple hours to watch content. You don't want to search for 30 minutes. You want to sit down and have a slate of things that fit your eye and that meet your taste. So as you think about, and I joke, like, content privacy doesn't want to know your ATM PIN code. It's not like they're trying to get your social security number. They just want to know, do you like crime dramas? Do you like, romance? Do you like live TV? Do you like sports? What do you like? So that when you sit down, it can present you things that you don't have to go find every single time. So the privacy paranoia, as I call it, there's probably more fear than reality, is that people get scared that Big Brother's watching me and they know what I'm watching. But if it makes your life better, it makes your life more efficient. You're able to sit down, watch great content with your family, and then go to bed, and you had a full night. That's not a problem. It's like I said, they're not getting your ATM code. They're just literally trying to understand your content preferences. That's where I think we have to break the privacy in half, right? We have to take away, getting financial information versus, behavioral, right? I just need to know what you want to watch, and I can help you find it faster. That's a benefit.
Absolutely it is. And to your point, break it apart, because this word privacy is a big umbrella that covers a whole hell of a lot of things, which does include good and bad things, right? Certainly helping me find content, there's not a lot of harm in that. But, when it starts to be used for, feeding into my tendencies, right? Political, religious, whatever, then that goes a totally different direction pretty quick.
Yeah, that's social. Social does it every day. You hear your own echoes, right? So that is like anything else. Anything good could be abused in the wrong hands, And that's why I said the privacy thing is an interesting slippery slope, because I'm always up for innovations. I'm always up for being more efficient. I know sitting trying to find content for a half hour is a waste of my time. That's a half hour I'll never get back. So as long as it can be put in the hands of making good content recommendations, for example, that's great. You're right. If it goes under the other side, it's a problem. But we have to be able to make that a gray area. We can't just make it black or white.
Yeah.
Right. You can't just shut that off. It's not reasonable.
It's not. Well, we've covered a lot of ground here, Keith, and maybe my last question for you, because I feel like we could go on forever here.
Oh yeah.
Tell me about, your business itself, where you see things going. We talked a little bit about technology just changing, so rapidly across everything that you guys are trying to monitor and improve from a consumer experience perspective. But what's kind of next for you guys, either from what you're doing with your platform or where you see the industry going?
Yeah, well, I think, by the way, in video, our mission is, and it's a lot of what we just talked about, is that as more and more businesses move to the internet, to be able to have a data relationship, to be able to see what's happening with my consumers, could be a video viewer, could be an app user, could be anyone on the internet. Businesses that put their stuff on the internet have a really interesting now data-driven business model they can build. We just talked about the value that you could do that in the subscription business. I know what content is popular. I know what's trending, right? I know what's hitting my viewers from an experience perspective. So I'm able to get really smart. So we, Conviva, make the promise that anything you put on the internet will give you an immediate real-time connection to your endpoint. That endpoint can be a video player, an app, or anything else. But you want to be able to see the performance so that when people come to your business, it's like having a storefront here in Old Town. If the door's locked and they can't get in, your business is going to die. Well, we want you to know, oh, wait, the door's locked. Someone's trying to get in. Let me run and unlock it. Mm-hmm. That's what essentially Conviva does for businesses on the internet. We simply say that you should have an understanding and have a connection to your user, to your viewer, to your consumer. And you should know what they want you to do. There should be no guesswork in your business when you move it to the internet. And Conviva really provides that measurement technology, the analytics capability for you to become a truly data-driven business, in which, whether it's serving video, putting out the next generation of app version, or even security, like everything should have a place where you can measure it. You can make really informed decisions and make them really fast. Not for your own business, right? Yeah, sure, you'll make more money, but for your consumers' benefit, right? This whole thing is about the more people are happy, the more they spend, the better the experience, the longer they watch. So the better anything, the better your business is. And that's Conviva's promise is we'll measure, we'll show you in real time, and you'll be able to make the decisions you need to make as people are expecting you to make them. So they're not sitting outside your store with the door locked, wondering why they can't get in.
Yeah, that's a good point. And if, you think about video as something like continuously being delivered to you over the internet, like you're interacting with it, the way mobile apps, websites, everything's going, it is more of that continuous experience now. It's not a static website where you're just reading the page the way, the internet originally was. I mean, it's a lot of rich content, a lot of APIs, a lot of data and information going back and forth. You do want to measure that experience, right? Especially, we build websites and pull a lot of pieces of content from a lot of different places. If those don't come in the right sequence, or if one piece of it fails, like the whole experience goes to shit pretty fast, can it?
Yeah, no, I tried to buy a plane ticket the other day on my airline app, and the button wouldn't work. I was clicking and it wouldn't go. I had to close the app, re-log in, and then go through the whole process again. Like, that's not a good business. If you don't know that happened, then you're frustrating your consumers. No matter what you do, you need to remove barriers for your consumer satisfaction, right? You need to make it easier and cleaner and better experience. And if you make a good experience, just like a regular storefront, if your store is pleasant to walk into, people walk in. If it's not, they don't. So it's the same thing with the digital world, right? You need to know the experience your consumers are experiencing when they come to your front door. And now the front door is an app, right? Now the front door is a video player on my TV in my living room. I need to know that my business is healthy. And I'm only able to see that by whether my consumers think I'm healthy or not. Not whether I sit back and say I did a great job. I trust myself, right? Yeah. Measure. That's available on the internet. That's Conviva's promises. We will measure your business and give you everything you need to be a better business.
Well, Keith, this has been a really fun conversation. We've kind of covered a lot of ground. But if any listeners have questions about what we talked about today, wants to learn more about Conviva, where are the best places to go?
Conviva.com or and then I think they can connect with us there. So we'd be happy to help. But this is the new digital frontier. We're at the beginning of it. Video's just led the way. So I think more and more businesses are going to find their way to the internet.
You're 16 years in and you're saying we're at the beginning of it?
Yes, yes, finally.
We're finally on the doorstep. Right. Awesome. Well, Keith,
Yes,
thanks again.
patience
Really
is a
appreciate
virtue.
the time today.
Absolutely, Nick. Thanks for having me.